People think injustice comes with sirens and shouting with chaos you can point at and say, yeah, that's wrong right there, but that's not how it usually happens. Most of the time, it slips in quietly in the middle of an ordinary day while everyone around you is just trying to get through their routine. That's how it happened to me. Broad daylight, my own workplace, 20 minutes before I was supposed to be on the bench. It was a Tuesday afternoon, warm enough that the heat was bouncing off the pavement outside the courthouse. I parked where I always parked, grabbed my briefcase, and stepped out of the car already thinking about the custody hearing I had coming up. I'd done this walk so many times I could have done it with my eyes closed. Same steps, same doors, same rhythm. Nothing felt off. Nothing felt dangerous. And honestly, why would it? I was a judge walking into the courthouse where I worked. Then I heard, "Ma'am, hold up a second." I stopped, turned, and saw a uniformed officer stepping away from his patrol car. Calm voice, neutral face, body cam blinking. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't defensive. I thought maybe there was a security issue or he needed directions, something simple. You know what I mean, normal stuff. He asked for ID. I smiled, reached into my bag, and said, "Of course. I'm Judge Moore. I have court in about 20 minutes. I handed him my judicial credential and my driver's license like I'd done dozens of times before in different situations. He barely looked at them, flipped them once, handed them back, and said, "These could be fake. Where are you actually going?" That was the first moment I felt that little shift in my stomach. Confusion more than anything. I told him I worked there, told him my courtroom number, told him I'd been on the bench for years. He stepped closer and said, "You don't sound like you're from around here." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Not because it was new. It wasn't. I'd heard versions of it my whole adult life. But hearing it there in that moment, standing 20 feet from the doors of the courthouse where I presided, it felt surreal. Like the ground moved half an inch and no one else noticed. He asked about my immigration status. I told him I was a citizen, that I'd lived here for decades, that I'd shown him my credentials. I stayed calm, professional. That's what the job teaches you. You don't escalate. You don't react emotionally. You rely on facts. Except facts didn't matter. He told me to turn around and put my hands behind my back. For a split second, I thought I misheard him. And then I heard the cuffs. That sound stays with you. It's sharp and final in a way words aren't. People stopped walking. I could feel eyes on me before I saw faces. An attorney I recognized started jogging toward us, saying my name, telling the officer who I was. A court clerk pulled out her phone and started recording. 2 bailiffs froze on the steps like their brains hadn't caught up with what their eyes were seeing. I didn't resist. I knew better. I let him cuff me and guide me toward the patrol car like I was a threat, like I didn't belong there, like everything I'd built could just be set aside because of how I sounded when I spoke. He opened the back door, put a hand on my head, and sat me inside. I remember sitting there and thinking, this is exactly what so many people feel when they stand in front of me in chains, except they're accused of crimes. My crime was walking into work with an accent. Yeah, that happened. 8 minutes later felt like an hour. When the supervisor arrived and looked into the car, her face changed instantly. She knew me. She ordered the cuffs off right away. When the officer reached in to unlock them, I pulled back and told him to step away. I wanted her to do it. I needed that control back, even if it was small. When I stepped out of the car, my wrists were red and sore. My briefcase was on the ground. My watch said my court session had already started. People were staring. Some looked angry. Some looked embarrassed. Some looked scared. That night I didn't sleep. Not because of the physical pain that part past. It was the replay. His tone. The way he said, "You don't sound like you're from here." The way years of service meant nothing in that moment. 3 days later, the body cam footage was everywhere. Millions of views. Comment sections on fire. The county put out a statement full of words like regret and commitment and review. You've seen those before. They don't change much. I sat across from a civil rights attorney who told me the case was clear. False arrest, civil rights violations, discriminatory enforcement. He said they'd want to settle quietly. I told him no. I wanted everything on record. Training logs, complaints, patterns. I wanted the truth laid out where people couldn't ignore it. The lawsuit dragged everything into the light. Prior complaints against the officer, no meaningful bias training. A system that looked the other way until it couldn't anymore. When the trial started, the courtroom was packed. When the footage played, you could hear the cuffs click again louder somehow, even though it was just a recording. Jurors watched my credentials get dismissed. Watched witnesses get ignored. Watched the moment power turned into arrogance. An expert explained how accent discrimination works, how it becomes a shortcut for bias. How you don't sound American quietly becomes you don't belong. When I testified, I didn't perform. I didn't dramatize. I told the truth about the humiliation, about the fear that came later, about explaining to my daughter why doing everything right doesn't always protect you. The jury deliberated for hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous. Liable on all counts. The damages totaled $22 million. People gasped. Some cried. I just closed my eyes for a second and breathed. The officer lost his job. Policies changed. Training was mandated. Committees were formed. On paper, at least things moved. 6 weeks later, I walked back into my courtroom. Same steps, same doors, same voice. This time, I didn't soften it. I didn't try to sound more acceptable. I spoke the way I always had. Because here's the truth. Justice doesn't require you to sound a certain way. And if this could happen to me in my own courthouse in front of witnesses in broad daylight, then what do you think happens to people without titles, without cameras, without a way to fight back? So I want to know what you think. Was this about safety or was it about bias? Where do we draw the line between authority and abuse? And how many stories like this never make it to a courtroom at all? Share your thoughts, tell your story if you've lived something similar, and let's actually talk about it.